Well, good morning, everyone. I'm Ron Burgess, and we are at another Micro Giants, another exciting Micro Giants meeting. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about product development after we have had uh, a lot of conversation on creative and writing the message and content, and that, of course, all spins off of the uh, the uh, uh, the initial product chart, marketing production chart or planning chart that we've all been working on here for some time, the cycle. And so I put together some pieces about product development that are just maybe a little bit on the academic side, but just to get us kind of started in terms of what do you do, how are you going to do it, why are you going to do it. And I think the first and the most important thing is that when you're defining your objectives, you want to really take a look at the market itself. So I did an interesting experiment. I decided to use Chat GPT and I just simply asked them this question. And it gave me a very extensive list. It obviously scrubbed all the internet and brought everybody's ideas together into one place and gave me about 8 or 9 or 10 or 11 bullet points, which was a little more extensive than normal. So it's always fun to see how well I agree with I guess the consensus is probably what we get back from Chat GPT. So I don't have a real disagreement with the way they put it together, but I do think that there's some fundamental differences in the way I've always done it. And of course, we're focused on small business here. This is really more focused on everybody, and I think it skews towards larger business. So I think, when you say define your objectives, set out your goals, et cetera, it's like, well, okay, let's all get together and decide we're going to do some product development. What should we do? I don't really see it that way. I think that it's really much more market driven. So when you get into market research, then you go, okay, we'll do a thorough market research, and that makes sense, customer needs, et cetera. But I really think that there's a little bit more to it for small business. So again, we reference the marketing planning cycle. The market niche itself is going to evolve based on new technology, changing tastes and preferences. You're going to have distribution problems, as we all have learned very acutely here through COVID. Pricing can change, costs change, etc. And therefore, the issue really is, well, what are the changes and what are the markets going to be like? And also, excuse me, matching customers to your competencies. It does very little good when you're small to determine that you need to come up with something that you can't deliver. Um, Edgar, you've been a little bit unique in that you've seen you've seen ways to develop products around the core for your business, but you were able to figure out how to actually build and deliver those products. Most companies couldn't do that. So how do you explain that? Not that most people couldn't do it, but I think it's pretty unique that
Um,
you're trying what you're attempting to do is to create revenue through in this case credit card clearing, but then you also realize there's so much more to it, and therefore that turns into a terminal, then it turns into a computer, that turns into a cash register, and then that whole thing turns into menu creation, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, the whole thing ties together, and you were able to see that. And that's exactly what I'm talking about in terms of where's your market, what do they need, and what can you do?
yeah, I think the biggest part that happened is I first tried to sell credit card only, credit card processing, and I
Mm-hmm.
realized that you're not solving too much of an issue with that, like too many problems, especially the ones that need it the most. So right away I realized I had to, instead of creating credit cards, a POS. And then I found a good company that provided POS, but then the issue is nobody can build the menus for them, and that was an issue in the market. So I had to figure out a way to build the menus for them, and then teach them how to use it, then coach them on how to use it, and then who's gonna install it. And so it went to this discovery phase of like, this to work, I think, and it's the fact that I'm like, I need to learn, I need to teach myself how to do these things if I'm going to be an expert on this. I'll figure the way how to delegate them later. That was the idea there. And then I went outside of the POS. I went into, oh, my TVs are broken. I have them off, not broken. I'm have them off because the menu has not been updated on the price in 2 years, and the guy that did it for me disappeared. So I'm like, okay. And that was I normally go and try to solve an issue when I hear it 3 or 4 times from the same people, like different people in the same industry. And I'm like, and I start asking around, it's like, is this an issue everybody has? And yes, it's an issue. Out of 20 people that have TVs, let's just say 80% of them have the same problem. And so I need to find a solution. And so I start YouTube University and and dig deeper, trying things that are not even in YouTube, just like downloading million apps, spending hours doing research, testing them out. It takes a little bit of learning a little bit of everything to give it a shot, but after a while I don't give up. I go to bed. That's my hobby. There you go. Instead of going to bed before I unwind with trying to find a solution to customers. So if you see my table,
I've got to interrupt here briefly, Edgar.
Sure.
Because you said a key word more than once that, as we're talking about this, nobody's mentioned. You've actually said it, and that is find a solution. And I really feel like, for everything that I've seen and think about, that product development in its truest form of sense, that is market driven, is finding solutions to problems.
yeah.
I mean, if there is no problem, you don't need a solution. So what are you doing? You're just making it. Why do you make something smaller? Just because you think it looks better, smaller? Or why do you make something larger or bigger? I mean, we do those things because we're trying to find a solution to a problem.
I'll show you my dining table right now. I'm trying to solve an issue for one of my customers. I've been trying for 6 months already. Testing research facility right now.
I don't know about the wine glasses mixing with the product. I mean,
Yeah,
no,
the
that's
product.
my wife's decorations.
Oh no, okay, very good.
That kind of makes me think we should come over and help you do some product design with those wine glasses there.
So I've got an unusual case history story for you that came out of 2 guys sitting around, technology based. Do you remember the little oxygen carts that people would trail around with 2 wheels and a green tube and a handle like a golf cart, and they'd have it coming up to their nose?
Yeah.
And this is 20 years ago. And the problem with that particular model as it came out was you had to plug it into 110 volts to be able to distribute or know what was going on. Back in the day, it was a difficult process. You had the compressed gas, but you didn't really know what was going on because you only had a control valve. Well, I was part of a group that was doing some development work, and we were actually supplying the core control for this company. And it was a nationwide company. And they said it'd be really nice if people could take it out mobile and be able to look at what level and what rate it is and how much oxygen they got left. We don't really know until it stops. So the guy I was with was an electronics technology gadget maker. And he said, you know what? We can make a battery powered, pressure sensitive humidity model that we could put on this thing that would show you the amount of oxygen left and the flow rate and the rate you're distributing. So a group of us got together, developed this little module that was about the size of 3 matchboxes and powered off a 9-volt battery. And it was like $300 to make if in 1,000 pieces. And the company said, well, let's try some. So they went out and tested it. And the resounding success was the guys who had this issue loved it because now they could go out for the weekend and they knew that they had enough and they weren't going to run out of oxygen. So that then led into a whole development of, let's look at every single client we've got making electronics technology for, go back and ask the guys, what are the problems your customers are facing? Let us be your problem solutions team and bring you back solutions you can then own and give to your customers. And it was a huge success.
Yeah,
You did that as like in a vendor relationship,
Well,
really.
yeah, I was at that point, we had a relationship. We were agents for a number of manufacturing companies. Some of them were big, like AMD and Micron, but we're also agents for companies that back in the day were the forerunner for Flextronics, a company called GMI Electronics, a very large producer of controls and systems, several $1 million. And so they were young enough and they were in the innovative stage of, they used to just take orders for things. And then after a while, they said, well, what about if we refine this, we make it less expensive and we make it more reliable? It will cost us engineering time, but we've got that expertise. And so out of that came a number of companies. One of them was the Technology Group, that was a very large entity out of Wisconsin. And they came out of Wisconsin and they revolutionized across the country, really, this ability to have 50 or 100 engineers working on technology, and they ended up being a prime supplier for IBM and a prime supplier for some other Fortune 550 companies. But what they did is they said, like, give us your products, let us go and redesign them for future efficiencies, and we'll share in them. And here was the kicker, 50-50.
Oh,
We'll do the design development. We'll show you the cost savings, and let us share with you in the cost savings. So it's on us to do it. They invested millions of dollars in equipment, but they made millions of dollars back.
yeah. Wow.
Now, see, that's American ingenuity.
Well, and I love that, because what that does is that it's so niche driven, because when you're solving a customer problem, you've already created a market. Now
the market's already there.
they're
Yeah.
probably your customers already, right? But if they are your customers already and they come with a problem and you say, well, we think we've got a solution, we can build and design a solution for you, then you've got a built-in market. You don't have to go looking for it. That's
Right.
just beautiful, and that's how entrepreneurs really make things happen, because it's like you never really just build something and look for a market.
Well, then you end up with a partnership.
Yeah,
Edgar, I know that you have a symbiotic partnership with your clients. Yes, you make money out of supplying them product and services, but yes, they make money out of working with you to be their platform to go and grow their business. And so
they're giving you feedback on what it is that their customers in fact want.
this is the most exciting part of business, I think, is when you actually work with clients who understand that you're not there to just receive dollars and cents. You're actually there because you desire their business to grow, and
Right.
how can you help their business grow?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I love what I do on the credit card clearance, because it's their growth is my income. I don't get, I get a residual based on it. So the more they grow, the better for me. The less they need me, the better for me. The more technology I can apply to do the things they don't have to do, the less I rely on them giving me a call. So I think it aligns with that. One thing that maybe I want to add is, I feel like one thing when I was maybe 5-6 years ago, I would think of an idea and limit myself, thinking I need a developer, I need a software guy, I need millions of dollars to start this, or thousands of dollars to build this. Surprisingly, you start realizing the one thing I needed to figure it out is, how can I do that without having to spend that much money? The software, and one thing I got good at is putting together 3 or 4 different softwares that do different things together without having to spend on a very expensive developer. And if I can prove the issue, I can fix the issue with that, then I save myself all that money, but at least I kind of get to test the market, I guess is a good way to put it.
Yeah. Well, and you end up having not only a testing opportunity, but you end up then with an incremental kind of improvement to a product, which saves dollars in terms of development. It means you're not going down a cul-de-sac where you have to turn around and throw the money away. We learned some things, but now we're going to go down another direction. But we spent some money. So, I mean, you kind of do those things at the same thing. Entrepreneurs are so much better at doing that, because they can generally, turn fast, make quick decisions, throw away things that didn't work pretty fast.
Yeah.
And that's why smaller companies can do such a better job in terms of developing, particularly where you're not actually inventing something big and new, you know, although that's happened. Now you have developed your hardware based on components, and those components were already built by people. So
Well,
all
most
you
yeah,
did is
most
put them
developments,
together.
there's no new ideas.
Yeah.
It's very similar to the pizza. It's, you know, the pizza itself was just a combination of old products or different products put together. And I think especially in technology, it's the same way. These ideas have been used in different arenas for
Mhm.
different things. It's now a matter of taking a proven technique and applying it to in a new manner with a new outcome.
Right.
Plus,
Yeah.
the part of this is you got to be prepared to fail, because sometimes, well,
A lot. Yeah.
there is no guarantee that the guy is going to like a 9-volt battery backed up monitor or whatever. We had another one that was fascinating. It was an elevator company, and they were making medium rise elevators. Well, one of the codes changed that said you can't go over a certain limit if you didn't have emergency service backup power. So now the solution was, well, everybody just went out and bought a diesel generator, and then they rewired it all, and they had this thing. It was huge. But the problem was now that to sell elevators for a certain size, medium rise, 2, 3, 4, 5, became really expensive. If you're in a private place, you could do it, but if you're in a public space, you had to have the backup, and it just became a nightmare for the sales folks because they had to then get involved with permitting all the heavy duty electrical and getting diesel generators and whatever was needed. Well, one of the guys came out and said, look, well, what say we do a regenerative elevator system? And we actually, how long can we run it? Is it acceptable to have it run for an hour? Is that long enough? Is it
You've only got to
acceptable?
get them down and out, right?
Right. So,
Yeah.
and then they went through the thinking and it realized that, you know, provided you can run it for about 45 minutes, it can then fail or not shut down. So
Yeah.
at least you can get everybody down and out in the case of a fire. So this certain company known as Otis went out and they developed a medium rise variable frequency generator that was regenerative with its own inbuilt battery pack. You could put it
Nice.
into a 4-story, cut the power off it, and the thing will go up and down for the next couple of hours. That thinking completely revolutionized their business model because now they were addressing safety and security. They could now go out to remote locations where people didn't have the infrastructure and perhaps were suspect of power fluctuations and provide a really wonderful solution.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, it then led to DC generators and direct drive generators, elevators that were more efficient. Well, they didn't know it, but they were getting into the efficiency business before it was the efficiency business.
Right.
Fast forward 10 years, they've already got efficient elevators.
That's right.
So it was fascinating to be in the middle of that. And we were in the middle of it because we were one of their big providers of electronics technology. And they came and said, what do you know about variable speed, variable frequency drive stuff? And so there was some technology that came to play. They had all their engineers that did some big stuff because United Technologies is a big company. But then how do you apply it to this little project?
That's another real another point which I did not include. In AI missed it too. Chat missed it too, and that is changing government regulations.
Oh, very much so. And in fact, I would say
driving a lot of innovation because they come up with these wild and crazy ideas, and it's like, okay, now you guys see if you can actually overcome these obstacles we put in place here.
Yeah, it's the one thing I mentioned that I was almost like ready to fail. I was going to start offering customers some sort of basic website because nobody had one. And then the regulation, I started doing my research and realized that websites are now a public space, consider a public space. So you have to be applying the same rules as you do a regular public space in physical form, which means you have to be ready to have your website to be ADA compliant.
ADA compliant.
And
Right. We went through that as well, and we came up with a plugin, by the way, and and just you add that and you can kind of move. But so far we're not sure that that's going to work for California. they may come back and say, well,
Oh,
okay, you took care of this issue and this issue, but
mhm.
what about, say, mobility? And you're
And
going,
the
what do
other
you
issue
mean?
that I was concerned about was like, okay, well, the plugin is easy. Can you do that to an online ordering system?
Well, yeah. See,
And it's a plugin instead of a plugin.
that's right.
And so now I struggled and I looked at a lot of guys that were doing online orderings, companies like Spot, Pop Menu, and all these other ones.
Yeah,
Well, most of them, all they have is a disclaimer
yeah.
and saying, hey, we're trying to make our website ADA compliance. It's not there yet. We're not discriminating, because the lawsuit that I heard is mostly discrimination, not that it's not compliant. And
Well,
so
yeah, and spoke in a chamber meeting the other day where there was an attorney who addressed that issue, and he said, well, if it looks like you're trying to comply, et cetera, but that doesn't look like that's going to hold up for long.
exactly. So you need to get ready.
Yeah,
You need to get ready to make it compliant, because then I'm assuming there's going to be some sort of, well, you don't want to rely on the fact that they're going to say is like, well, now it's a fine if you're not compliant. It's not even a lawsuit.
well, I believe that we're there now. Yeah,
Mm.
we're already at the fine, and
And
yeah, there have actually been some threats and payoffs by companies just saying, okay, I give, and I'll just pay a fine. They settle out of court.
and so there's some websites, there's some the way that I finally found one to help customers, because like, well, we're not supposed to have a website anymore. It's like, no, we need it. If you're losing money there, we can't also afford to do that. So I found a way how to put a website and online ordering system that the widget applies to it.
Yeah. Okay.
And so far that was one of the only ones. I haven't found any other one. And I noticed I copy the big companies, but I see the big companies just lawyer it up. So they have lawyer disclaimers that are pages long, and so try to sue us, and it's almost like you're probably gonna we're gonna counter sue as bad as you're gonna sue us. So they're
It's
protected. The little ones are the ones that are protected.
it's pretty sad when you have to have a discussion about innovation and product development that is driven by a law that is in a way nonsensical. You're talking about someone who needs to be able to use a computer, and then they're blind. Okay, they're using a computer, and you can do some things for that person, but what if they've got their fingers cut off? Now, what are you supposed to do now? I mean, you see, it's like you've got an infinite number of disabilities. It's not like you're a physical store and you're trying to make it accessible to whoever wants to come in and buy something. It's also a little bit like saying we've got a billboard and you have to make the billboard ADA compliant.
Yeah, and so
Really, a billboard is visual. If you're blind, you're not going to see it. You see, I mean, you get to this level of absurdity when you just kind of grab a concept and then you try and force it all the way through the tube, and then it hits all the small business people, and then we're all trying to figure it out instead of doing things that people want to buy, and so it's kind of a little bit of a waste of resources.
outside of law or regulation creating innovation, I think the biggest one I found was just the necessity to continue creating more cells or to free up their time.
Mhm.
And to basically do the job that a human being has been doing for X amount of time, to have nobody figured out how to kind of take it away from him. So right now I'm working on an idea. It's part of my POS system, same thing. Is I've been trying to figure out a way how to create a local network using VPNs
Oh,
with routers, so the printers can work across different locations. The system is already cloud-based. And the thing is, that's cool, but can you find a use for it?
yeah.
The biggest thing is that I have a customer that gets 1,000 phone calls per day. I'm probably not lying, because he picks up every single phone call for his food trucks,
Wow.
and he's basically a call center 24/7. His phone never stops ringing. And so the idea was, can we hook up a POS system in each location and have a centralized location where somebody can enter the order, but then we can print the food in the food trucks and they can just take a payment over there.
Right.
Then he could have the cameras and a phone system he can keep track of when people hit orders, and he can keep an eye on his business from a office, not necessarily having to pick up each phone call. So that's what this experiment is.
Yeah,
So,
okay.
where we found a very affordable company with TP-Link Omada, the Omada interface, which is
Mhm.
very easy to use to create site-to-site VPNs. And so I'm working on 2 routers right now to see if that's something I'm gonna pull off. And if it is, then we got 6 food trucks that we need to install POS systems to.
Oh,
I
well,
didn't sell the POS, I sold the solution.
that opens up another little market for you.
Yeah, that would basically mean that if I have another guy with 6 food trucks, he's probably having the same problem.
So
Yeah.
this is going back to that. What you're doing is you're bringing intelligence and solutions to your client base, and whatever their issues are, you're actually going to attempt to and get involved in solving those solutions. And some of them may seem to be disconnected to your business. They may be, something that's going on with ordering or not ordering, or it may be CRM stuff, or it may be, supply chain, which is not directly involved, but it is, because at the end of the day, all of your clients' business issues become something that you can affect or touch.
Mm-hmm. And the hardest customers to acquire are the ones that already have a PO system that you utilize all the tools inside of it and all the widgets or third-party apps that integrate with it, or the person to help them integrate everything.
So
And
think about, think about you're actually making me remind me of McDonald's, who ended up signing a contract. It was a New Zealand company actually who did the software development for McDonald's supply chain work back 30 years ago. And it was then purchased by a US company to be their remote division. But what they thought of back in the day was, as 100 McDonald's going through their food, that all of that food sales would aggregate somehow magically on spreadsheets and bill orders. And at the end of the day, or even during the day, it would be stocking up and stacking shipments. There would be no manager involved. There'd be nobody else involved in the process. But if you sold so many milkshakes and so many Big Macs, then automatically you didn't have to think about it. The supply chain was already primed. And so they built an integrated nationwide supply chain to help provide it. And McDonald's is exceptionally good. I mean, how many times do you go there and not get what you want? And I'll tell you the number one complaint, and I bet you know what it is. It's the ice cream machine.
yeah,
It freezes up.
Oh, yeah.
But it's not because they didn't have the stuff. It's
Yeah.
because, it just doesn't happen.
They bought the
That's
cheap
remarkable. I mean, that truly is a
there's a lot of myth in the internet that isn't purpose. They have their theories why. I forgot what they were, but it's pretty funny. It might even be planned. That's what they're saying.
Oh, well, yeah. There's a lot of conspiracies out there too.
So you're doing that. You're actually attempting to do kind of the same thing.
Well, when taking technology I don't have to develop, TP-Link is one company, Omada is another software, Shift4 is another software. So I'm taking as many softwares that it can somehow integrate it with each other. I don't have the money to do my own software, I guess. I don't need to. And figured a way to fix an issue, and it's much better because then I'm dealing with very proven stuff. I went on the internet, everybody teaches how to do tutorials on how to use a software, but nobody tells you how to implement it in real life.
Yeah.
You have to be very creative on figuring out, okay, well, if I use the Omada router and if I use this other switch from iLink Click, and I have all these little softwares, maybe I can put all this together and fix that issue. And that happens a lot.
Yeah. So part of what you've been talking about is not really product development, but sort of service development. And you've got
That's actually a good way to put it.
Services are both products and service. And so if you're trying to sort of ease the pain of, say, supply chain issues, or if you're trying to get the customer to be able to give you the order a little faster and all of those kinds of things, then that sort of falls in the service side, and that's a very interesting problem to deal with. I have a client who has, and sort of one of my examples of service development that deals a whole lot with HR issues having to do with insurance. And there are all kinds of regulations in terms of how much you use and whether you're eligible. And in some industries, there are very strange problems. One of them in the movie industry is that they use a lot of contractors who are not employees of the same company, yet the law has basically said, you've got 5 companies or 5 production companies using the same person, and you got to treat this person as if he's a single employee, even though each one of them contracts him individually. So for insurance purposes, you've got to keep track of all of those. Well, that's a very unique problem. So he spent, some pretty serious money trying to figure out how to solve that problem with the software developer, solved the problem, but found that this was also a product, because he now had a service that he could sell for X dollars per head, and solve all kinds of other problems along with that, legal issues that come up, and procedural issues and safety issues. So that's another situation where he recognized that his customer had a specific problem. They would ask him how to solve the problem, and he discovered there was no way to solve the problem. And he started off using giant spreadsheets, doing cross-tab analysis. It was a big problem. We helped him a little bit on that part of it, to utilize spreadsheets in this way, and it was very tedious and dangerous, because if you don't do it right, it's not going to be right. So eventually he got fixed and got a major product doing it, and that's turned into another whole business, which has given him a national platform as opposed to a regional platform. So that's one of the examples of utilizing, going after efficiencies and services and solving problems as well. JP, I know you've done some product development. You want to jump in here and throw in your 2 cents?
Absolutely. So, I've had similar experiences to what were expressed by John and Edgar, namely, I guess you could say I've tried to play matchmaker between 2 markets and sort of create a third. There are businesses that are looking for locally sourced product that don't know where to find it, or that, it even exists, and, or that the inputs necessary for these things exist. And then there are producers of these locally sourced products that have become, over time, more disconnected from the movements of the general commercial market. And that's kind of become, both of these markets have a problem, and there are a bunch of knock-on effects that I'm not going to bore everyone with, and I'm sure I've talked about it before. But ultimately, I saw 2 sections sort of in need of one another, but not able to sort of communicate with each other. With local farmers, for instance, a lot of them historically were served by packing houses who did a lot of the product development, a lot of the marketing, and that model is aging. And
a lot of them have gone out of business, haven't they?
Right. And Redlands and Riverside are basically down to their final bits. And they've done certain things that are real hits, like fruit gems, for instance, or sun-kissed soda, which actually, it turns out, doesn't even contain real oranges anymore. But anyway, yeah.
And like so many other things, right?
Yeah, it turns out Fanta's the one for you if you want real oranges. But anyway, I was looking for ways to produce products that would give people down my supply chain access to unique product that, either was an important marketing piece for their company, or they were really interested in, showcasing this for the heritage or for the local economy or whatever. And, farmers are many things. They're entrepreneurs as well. But then again, they're also so focused on making the farm run day to day, it's kind of a tall order to ask them to develop product. And so that's sort of what I took upon myself. And I haven't exactly developed anything new. My biggest products are a perfume and 12 flavors of lip balm and soap. So the archetypes had been developed. The materials and ingredients were sitting there. And then there was a market that maybe didn't even know what they were looking for, but it was kind of a we'll know it when we see it sort of deal. And I've had conversations with my with my customers about, you know, it'd be really cool is if you could do this flavor, or if we might be able to refine the packaging this way, or if we might be able to do this or that. And so there is still that active conversation with my end customer, which is sort of the gift shop or museum store, as it were. And people have begun to see, you know, that sourcing something fresh or sourcing something from an area with prime agricultural produce, that ultimately the product has a quality that speaks for itself. So, and that gets people thinking, it gets people excited. So, I mean, I came at product development from sort of several different ways. I mean, basically the farming community and the gift store community didn't really even know they needed each other. And then finding these ways to reach the public through retail on these topics was basically what I wanted to do. My thesis was the average Californian doesn't realize or know what's right next door, and realize or know how wonderful these products are or this produce is. And the ultimate choice in retail is really a personal one. You're deciding what to invite into your home or to apply to your body or to consume in some way. We've talked about this in the past with like Nike and other branding. Basically, it forms a piece of your identity. And so when you make that kind of a really intimate decision, ultimately you kind of win hearts and minds that way. People begin to learn about the area they're in, see for themselves how wonderful the stuff is here locally, and learn to start looking for it and consuming it. So
and they know that they're supporting local sustainability as opposed to who knows where this stuff is from, Brazil or whatever. And that's
right.
That's a nice, in our current environment, that's a nice attribute.
For sure. And I mean, my own particular twist, and speaking to someone who's thinking about developing a retail product, is everyone on this call knows that I'm a history nerd at heart. And so history has really influenced what I've produced. For instance, the perfume is a reproduction of a Gilded Age souvenir item that wealthy Easterners, when they came out here out west, bought. And so that's something I've been working on developing right now, beginning to sort of tweak the packaging more, but capture that fragrance that people don't actually really associate with citrus culture. Like, they think about the orange, they don't think about the experience of the blossoms. So that's been kind of fun, thinking about how I can make the packaging expressive of that history and yet not mired in it. I think that's the balance that I've had to walk. Is they're not objects in a museum. They need to appeal to people. They need to make something that was historically relevant now.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting idea. You can't experience the blossom of an orange orchard unless you live next to one. That's
Right.
a unique experience that's just only available there, I think. And the idea of thinking about joining the packaging together with the ultimate product as part of the experience is, I think, a growing area. It really is. And it's a very interesting idea. I've got a video that's very short that I'd like to show you guys real quick, because I think it actually fits right into your discussion of, oops, let me see, I apologize. Here we go. I hope you can see that right now.
Yes.
Okay.
Or at least the PowerPoint presentation.
There we go. Yeah. So it's, I haven't tested it. Let's just hope that this works. I may not. No, I think I've got a problem with it, so I'm gonna forget that right there. But I think I'll try one more thing real fast because I believe that I've got this in something that's going to run anyway. Okay. There we go. Now, all this is, I'm just going to narrate this, is all this is a package that, you know.
I'm looking at your Outlook.
Oh, you're seeing it, so you're not able to, you're
I'm
not
looking at your Outlook page.
Okay, let's see if I can reshare this. I'm not sure if I can actually get there from here. You're hearing a lot of stupid noise though, aren't you? Let's see, okay. We'll try one more time.
We apologize for the technical
The
difficulties we're
technical,
currently experiencing.
yeah, the technical
We need to have Edgar at the controls.
Yeah, or you, one or the other. Let's see if I can actually get the player to show up.
Okay, we're looking at a green bin with Ravello.
Okay, so if I could only get rid of this.
Ravello, what's Ravello?
I don't, this is pretty bad. Can you see that over the side?
Oh yeah, we can see that now.
We can see
All
it.
right. So what we're looking at is just a box. And you open it up and it turns out that, you know, my wife bought this. This is so she can start seedlings. And you think, well, the seedlings are, you know, in a stupid old box somewhere. Fine, but then as I started looking at it, I realized how amazing the product is and the packaging, including the shipping container. And so you see how all of these pieces just simply fall together and one fits into the other, but ultimately you've got 6 of these individual little planting urns. And that is compared with an old box.
And are they all in the bottom of those little containers? Are there seeds in a gel-like thing that you just add water and it starts to grow?
You can, and there are little utensils and stuff in there, and so you can either buy them and then you can stuff them in there and then grow. But I mean the point is that they literally built the entire product with the idea of creating practically an experience, just unpacking it. And we've talked a little bit about this in the past, but the development of the shipping container, the product itself, and how it all goes together has gotten to be quite an art. And you know that really, or even an engineering project, that whole thing is all part of the experience. I'm thinking about, I don't know, maybe going even further than that, JP, in terms of, I don't know. How do you create the smell of flowers while you're opening up something that's an orange product? But you know, that's out there.
I do have a way of doing that with some of my direct to consumer business. The packaging, and this is sort of a product I've been thinking about how to develop and haven't quite gotten there yet. But I have the fragrances, I know how to make them, and so I fragrance the packaging.
Oh, okay.
So when you order on Amazon Handmade your 3-pack of lip balm in whatever flavor you want, a little red or a little orange envelope arrives in the mail, a little bubble mailer, sealed with my company seal, and then wrapped inside in a piece of green tissue paper. That green tissue paper has been fragranced with a perfume strength fragrance that we've developed using our local ingredients. And so
okay.
The ultimate contents may not even be orange. I make other things too, prickly pear, for example. But that way, when you open the package, that fragrance aspect of the experience is still part of the use of the product, at least at the very beginning.
Yeah. So okay, cool. That's cool. Well, and so these have all been some great ideas, I think, and we just happen to have four people who've done an awful lot of this stuff. You know, we've talked about creativity before, and done a couple of special programs on that. And I think that what happens is that the innovation and creativity end up getting to where our discussion has been today, because this is what happens when you have creativity and innovation, is you end up coming up with new solutions to new problems, and even solutions to new problems, at the same time kind of growing over into the fashion side of things. And we didn't really talk too much about some of the fashion pieces that I've worked on, but you've heard those stories before. But I think JP, you're really in the fragrance side of things, in the personal care side of things. That very much is on the fashion side, as opposed to, say, the utilitarian side of product development. And
Mhm.
people change their ideas about what they're interested in, and so you bring not only the visual and the tactical, but the nose as well. The smell is an important part of all of that, and then combining it with local sustainability, as well as knowing that you've got local farmers developing all this stuff. I mean, it's kind of an exciting idea. And so I think maybe we're going to have to set one of these up where you kind of demo these products so we can really see what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
Yeah, we ought to do that. Maybe we'll do that next time. That'll be a good lead on to, or add on to what we've been doing here. So, well, I think we've used our time up. Any last thoughts about what we've talked about today?
If I were to hear anybody hear this when it comes to innovation, what the biggest mistakes that I find, habits, I guess, that I finally let go, is I don't spend no more than a couple of days once I get a product that's functional before I go ask somebody if I can try it. My biggest mistake is I wanted to perfect it. If you have customers that let you be well, at least in my case, I was like, you want to be the beta customer, like knowing that you're the beta, it's not a finished product, but
Yeah.
I try it. And if it goes wrong, at least I know what's going on wrong with it.
Yeah.
I had a customer that let me try it, and I quickly get past all the issues that normally I would have never thought about had I not asked somebody if to let me test it in the field.
Good point. And one of the slides that I didn't bring up is sort of the rest of the chat CPT, which is business case development. Can you build a case for the product that you're working on? And that assumes you build it first, as opposed to moving into prototyping and testing, which is what you're talking about. And then the last two, one is product development and design, which we kind of just talked about. You're just getting ready to start developing it. And then quality assurance and testing is the last one. I know that John's done an awful lot of that stuff before they get into production. They have to do an awful lot of that to make sure that you're actually delivering something that's got that, what it is that you said you're going to deliver. Mm-hmm. So those are sort of the formal things. When you have a beta testing arrangement, you not only you're really doing all four of those things at the same, or all three of those things at the same time. And you've got people who are willing to kind of put up with mistakes that happen. I think it's a pretty good way to do it. If you don't have to develop something that requires a production run, for instance, certain packaging like the one that we looked at, that's really costly to develop. You have to buy dies. You've got to cut certain pieces of cardboard a certain way. The product itself is built to fit all together. That's very expensive. Small operations don't have too much opportunity to do that, and have to find workarounds. And you've got to be very creative to come up with a workaround that says what you want to do, and explains to the customer and communicates with the customer what you want to communicate, without having to get into these long runs that require $20,000 to $80,000 molds. Mm-hmm. And that's what you're talking about in an awful lot of these kind of products, which keeps little guys out of the running when you're talking about product runs of 100, 200, 300, 400. or one at a time products like you're building, Edgar. So, that requires even more creativity and more understanding of where that cul-de-sac is so that you don't go too far down before you have to turn around and come out, because most times your ideas don't work out. I think that entrepreneurs, not only do you have to be tough about going forward and doing it, but you also have to be tough about saying, I'm not going to get there because it's too much money. I'm not going to get there because I can't get the technology done there, and trying to recognize that ahead. And sometimes you just have to say, I've got to cherry pick these pieces and do the ones and step it up. And I got to grow into a place where I can afford to build, say, the next product. And that's always.
You're bringing up an issue that I don't know that we've addressed, and that is sometimes you can come up with the very best evolution of your product, and you can actually bring it out at a time that it kills your business completely. And there's a really classic business case for this. Back before laptop computers were laptop computers, a company called Osborne Computer pioneered a device you could pick up. It was about 45 pounds, and it was a computer within a briefcase.
Yeah, I used one of those for a while.
They're at $2,000 a piece. And my accountant had one, and it was phenomenal because he could bring his computer in and sit it down, plug it into my 110 volts, and he could work with it. Well, they came up with a really great solution. They came up with a battery backup solution that would run for about an hour, and they announced it to the world that they had got this new one that was going to sell for $2,000.
Yeah.
Well, guess what happened to the stock they had? They had 1,000 or so Osborne computers ready to ship. They all got canceled, and they got orders for their new solution. The problem was they didn't have any of those on the shelf. Number one. Number two, their supply chain hadn't been developed for them. Number three, they didn't have enough money to pay for them without selling the other ones.
Right.
They went bankrupt and out of business. They were a force to be reckoned with. They were coming up, and Televideo was there. IBM was coming up with some semi-portable. I mean, it was a big deal. And they were gone.
I remember that very, very clearly, and I didn't know why they went out of business. But I can tell you that I had a Compaq right after that.
They went out of business because their marketing department got really aggressive and sold it, and they shot their existing sales.
They didn't really understand what they were doing.
They were not marketing. Well, they were engineers.
Yeah,
Osborne Computer was an engineer-driven company. They didn't have a marketing side. They didn't listen to the marketing guys.
Yeah,
didn't have to after a couple of weeks.
Yeah, what a good place to end, I suppose.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you, everyone.
See you in a couple of weeks.